Well, good morning and hello again, my friends. We are working on the 5 keys of success, and I wonder if you've even memorized them by now. Let's go ahead and call it out. Plan ahead, communicate, cooperate, follow through, and follow up. These are the 5 keys, my friends, that will be the basis of your leadership plan, and I think they will take you very far in life, both personally and professionally. So today we're going to look at communicate and cooperate. And these are not sequential steps. Again, we are always communicating in everything we do, and we're always cooperating, hopefully, as well. That's what gets the work done. I like this quote as we ended yesterday. The quality of your life is the quality of your communications. Again, remember, we had a nice case brought to us. You got a nice job, $85,000. You got a Range Rover. You know, I love that car. You got a cool office. You had your boss, Carol, come in and say, hey, get me a plan in a week because the department has not been doing well for Safety First Corporation. Yours was a safety shoe division. So you've done some amazing planning. We've got our mission statement. We've got our goals. We've got our objectives and our vision statement, know who our stakeholders are, and now we've got to be able to communicate, because if you're the only one who knows what to do, well, that ain't good. So, if you've taken a speech course, you've probably seen this model, the source message channel receiver. And as we see right here, this is communication, the most important interpersonal skill that you have. Certainly as a manager and as a leader, but I think just as a person, how we communicate is our most important skill that we have. So we have the source, the message, the channel, the receiver, and oh, if it were just that easy. If you've taken speech, but we know, does anything get in the way of this source, of your message? You're the source, all right? This is the message. Now, it has a lot of different ways you can get through there in our channels. And when it finally gets to the receiver, did something interfere with that? Yeah, we would call that noise, and there's noise everywhere. So, how can we be better at effectively communicating? So, for effective communication, and again, this is from Dr. Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, we should think before we speak. Now, wouldn't that just solve an enormity of problems that we face in life? Sometimes we don't think and we just blurt out. And when I say something, can I take it back? I mean, maybe you forgive me. All right, maybe it's in our DNA that we could forgive, but can we forget? We've talked about this before. It's very difficult to forget what someone has said to us. So, in your meetings, in your day-to-day actions with the people that we work with, think before we speak. We want to avoid the dialogue of the deaf. And that is this. Most people don't listen when someone is speaking. First, seek to understand the other person. You've got a problem with a coworker, a problem with an employee. First, seek to understand what's going on. People will listen better if they feel that you have understood them. So as a manager, if you understand your employees, they're going to give you more respect and they're going to listen better to you. Your team members are more open, more teachable, and dare say more interested in what you have to say, if you've understood them. Now, this is not easy. This is the hardest thing to do, in the workforce. So I'm not going to trivialize that. Let's avoid the dialogue of the deaf, because I could just sit there and yell at you, and then I say, okay, what do you have to say? Okay, you're done. I need this work done. Let's avoid the dialogue of the deaf, my friends. Now, again, we've made those plans. You've effectively must communicate these plans to your team. How do we do that? Well, this is taken from the great book, The 1 Minute Manager, by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And they did a lot of research during the 1980s, yes, my decade, and most managers were not spending any time at all with their employees. They just assumed that the work would get done. And so the 1-minute manager basically can you spend 1 minute a day clarifying expectations to your team, providing praise, correction, and instruction. Let's flesh this out. Clarifying expectations. Well, we have goals. So we're going to start with those goals and we're going to break them down. The 1 minute with each team member or as a group, examine the goals that need to be achieved. These should be simple. If it takes more than a minute to understand, if you have to get a flow chart out and get a calculator and say, this is what we have to do today, I don't think a lot of people are going to own that goal, or they're not even going to buy into it. No more than a minute to understand. And then once you've given a goal for the day or for the week, we can measure performance. Does behavior match upon the agreed goals? Hey, if it doesn't, then there's the room for desired performance. We can improve upon that. So we start with easy clarification, knowing what we have to do as an employee. Now, as a manager, providing praise. The key to developing people will always be to concentrate on what they're doing right versus what they're doing wrong, and that's the seagull manager. If you've ever seen a flock of seagulls on the beach, they'll come in, make a lot of noise, and then they'll dump all over you, and then they leave. And how many managers do that today, and leaders in the workplace? They come in, bark out orders, and you feel, intimidated and dehumanized, and then they just leave. So, my friends, if you have the opportunity to give praise to an employee, even a coworker, Lord forbid a family member, be immediate. Don't save that for a holiday. I've asked so many students over my 15 years of teaching to say, how many of you have gotten praised this week? And maybe one or two. That's not great. We shouldn't save this for an employee evaluation. Be specific. Why did that person deserve the praise? Hey, you know what? You were the highest producer this month. You got us into great sales. You fixed a problem for us. You made us look good. Our social media is doing fantastic. Thank you so much. You're making that department shine. So we're immediate, we're specific, we're encouraging, and will everything be perfect? Oh, if it only were. It's not going to be perfect. So praise if it's approximately right. If someone is going in the right direction, and that's what we're trying to do as a manager, as a leader. Point that ship into the right direction, and are we headed to that compass, to that point? May not be perfect, but praise even if it's approximately right. Correction. Are employees going to mess up? Well, sure we do. We do it all the time. Now, what do we do in that situation? We do have to hold our employees accountable. So, here's what we want to do. We want to redirect, find out what went wrong, get an employee, a person back on track. And this should be immediate as well. How many of us have gone through an employee evaluation? I know I have, over the years in my 30 years of work experience, where someone said, you should have done this during the evaluation. Well, if you'd have told me that earlier, like when it happened, I could have corrected it. So, and that's why this has to be done very fast. Don't wait until the end of the year. And reaffirm, focus on the performance versus, Randy, man, you're a big loser. Why can't you do anything right? Hey, Randy, this didn't go right. What can we do to fix that? So once you focus on performance versus the person, we start taking a lot of emotion out. And that's why so many people don't like to be corrected or even give correction, because it can be very emotional. So we're going to take that out by focusing on performance. But don't leave it there. Don't leave it on only correction. Provide instruction. That's the last thing. Hey, what has to be done today? Give them the successful directions to do that. So we end on instruction, and when we do that, we've created what Dr. Spencer said is a sandwich. We've clarified our expectation. We've given praise when appropriate. We've corrected when appropriate. And then we've always closed that sandwich up with instruction. And this focuses on performance, not the person. And this will really help your skills daily as a manager, because if not, then again, employees just seem to will do what they think they need to do, and that may not be what you wanted them to do. There's something out there called a quiet consensus, and you got to beware of that, my friends. Here's a metaphor, a little story. Are we going to Abilene? Picture yourself, close your eyes if you have a moment. It's the late 1970s. I know most of you were not born then, but it was a lot different place than it is today. Our area. It's Fort Worth, Texas. It's a July evening, and it's Saturday. It's about 4 o'clock, and a father and his family are sitting just kind of not doing anything. Hey, there's no cable TV. There's no internet. There's nothing to stream. They're just looking at each other. Dad says, hey, you know what? I had a buddy that said, there's a pretty good cafe in Abilene. You guys want to go to Abilene and eat there tonight? And the wife says, well, I guess I don't want to cook. And the daughter says, well, I don't have any plans yet. That's possible. And the son says, oh, all right, Abilene, oh, you guys want to go? So they all pile in the 1970 Ford Ranger pickup, which is simply one bench seat that they all huddle into, no air conditioning, the windows are rolled down, and they drive from Fort Worth to Abilene. Let's say it took them 2 hours. 6 o'clock, they roll into the town square, and back in the day, town squares basically shut down about 6 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So the shops are closing, the little stores are closing, but the cafe's still open. And as they walk around, Dad says, well, let's just go to that cafe. They go in, they sit down, and it's chicken fried steak. It may have been left over from lunch. There's mashed potatoes and peas and iced tea. It's decent, but it's certainly nothing you'd want to eat twice. And as they walk out of that cafe, now it's about, let's say, 7 o'clock, and everything is closed down. There's a movie theater going on, and Dad says, well, you guys want to see a movie? That wasn't too bad of a meal. And the wife says, you know what, we just got to get home. And the son and daughter say, yeah, Dad, I think it's going to be a while. Let's go home. So they take that drive back to Abilene, get back to Fort Worth. He pulls into the driveway. Mom comes out just lividly mad. I cannot believe we spent 4 hours in Abilene at a crappy little diner, and walks in and slams the door. Father's surprised. The young daughter says, yeah, Dad, I probably could have gone on a date tonight. I could have had my friends come over. This is terrible. And I'm so sweaty right now, too, and I'm dirty. And she slams the door and gets in that house. And, his faithful son says, oh, Dad, I'm sorry, man. This is a real loser idea. Can't believe we did that. They all leave, and the father said, I don't understand. You said you all wanted to go to Abilene. Now just try to forget that story for the rest of your lives. It's the metaphor. That's what the consensus can say, yeah, we all know what we're doing, and nothing gets done. Beware, my friends, of the quiet consensus, because you may go where you really don't want to go. Now, isn't that more what communication in the office looks like? There's you, there's the sender, there's some of your employees or coworkers, and there's that noise that gets in the way. You just said, hey, we have a new project to do. It's Friday afternoon. I tell you what, guys, everyone come in at 7:30 on Monday morning. I'm providing breakfast. We're going to lay out, we're going to clarify expectations on that new project so we can get going. These people didn't really hear what was going on because probably they were, listening to their phones or, music. And so this person says, what happened? And he said something about, we better get here early. And this employee says, did you say early? Why? I'm usually always late. Oh my God, are we getting nailed because we're late? This person says, hey, you know what? I don't think that's right. And by the time it gets down to here, this person says, great, we're all getting fired on Monday morning because we never do any work. Sometimes that happens, doesn't it? Be careful of how we communicate as well. Here's a great formula, my friends, that I got from an industrial engineer once. You're going to run meetings, okay? Your meeting, the number of people in your meeting should dictate how you're going to communicate. So we want to figure out how many communication channels we'll have. So N is the number of people in your meeting. And you multiply that by N minus 1. And then you divide it by 2. Simple, right? Here we go. You have a quick meeting with your team, all right, your Monday morning meeting. So you have 5 team members, including yourself, all right, so 5 minus 1. So 5 times 4 is 20 divided by 2. You have 10 channels of communication. Very, very easy, I would say. Well, not easy, but very manageable to make sure everyone knows what's going on. Okay, you just increased your people to 15. You just put 10 in there. Ooh, how come that number didn't just double from 10? 15 times 14 divided by 2. Do you see what happens? This goes up exponentially. There's so many more people who can talk to each other, and that's where that noise comes in. And now we just go to 25 stakeholders, and there's 300 different channels of communication. This one, we have a nice free-flowing meeting. We can talk about what we need to talk about. We can even talk about what happened over the weekend. You think you could do that with 25 people? Everybody's going to start talking, going on their own tangent. So this meeting probably needs a PowerPoint and handouts and no questions. Okay, this is a little more manageable, but still a lot of channels. Always use that. Next time you're in a meeting and you wonder why things went sideways so fast. Gosh, we came in at 8 o'clock and it's 10 o'clock and I don't think we've even talked about anything relevant to what we're doing. The wrong type of communication was going on in way too many channels. So, on communication, my friends, the biggest communication problem, we do not listen to understand. We simply listen to reply. Be careful of how much you say. This is for your career, okay? I think you'll find this with executives and upper level administrators. They typically don't care about your problem, but they may be able to use your problem against you. I think you've seen that before. Be careful of what you say and how much of it. People want to respond, they want to react. They may not want to understand where you're coming from. This is something just to keep your career on the upward slope. Improving conversations. How do we do that? Engage with eye contact. If I were to have a meeting with you, if I were in class right now and you asked me a question, I simply looked down at the floor, or I looked up at the ceiling, or I looked around, I don't think you would feel I'm paying attention to you or I'm even caring about you. When you have these conversations with employees and coworkers, engage with eye contact. Pay attention. Look at the body language. If I have my arms crossed and I'm looking down, I'm closing my position to you. I may not know that's what I'm doing, but you said, oh, Randy's closed up. He doesn't want to even talk to me. If I'm sitting down, arms open and full eye contact, I'm more open to to what you're telling me. Be careful of that body language, because in communication, it's about 98% body language versus 2% oral communication. So, listen before responding. People want to be heard. And you can use the I message in this way versus, you aren't doing a good job. I would like to see this happen. I would like us to make more sales. I would like us to have 100 more followers on our social media versus you better get us 100 more followers on our social media. And then how can we do that? Improving your conversations and communication. Very important. The roadblocks, avoid. If we're having a meeting and interruptions come up, hey, as a professor, and when you are in the lecture class and I see 5 people texting nonstop, well, I'd cry a little bit, of course. I suffer from low self-esteem, but that's an interruption to me. And so when you're on that, make sure that the phones are off, if possible, okay? What about making assumptions, what should be said? Oh, I think you meant to say this. Does that not just drive you crazy? You really don't know what I'm trying to say. So let's try to not make assumptions of what should be said. Let that person speak, or let you speak. Becoming distracted, unfocused. Again, when we're in a conversation, you're looking all around, or you're taking out your phone and you're hitting up all the text messages that you have, or emails, or other stuff, and that's very distracting. And of course, hey, it can get very tense if we think about too much time thinking about that comeback response. Oh yeah? Well, I think that's when we don't communicate anymore. No one's listening and no one's going to understand. Those are some nice tips right there to avoid roadblocks. And dare I say, for those who are in relationships, that might be very powerful as well. Remember, my friends, your team, will never guess what you're thinking. They just won't. You've got to be able to communicate. The effective communication is used throughout these 5 keys. The success model. It's not a linear model where you plan, then you communicate, then you cooperate, then you follow through, then you follow up. It's always happening. So I think the harder you work on your developing your communication skills, I think definitely the better manager, leader, I think the better person you become. Your job is to develop that team. Many times, as a first level manager, you'll just say, well, you know what, I know how to do the work, and evidently you're not understanding me, so I'm just going to do the work for you. That's not what you want. Develop the team, not to perform their work for them. Got to let these people grow. As we finish off, not finish off, but as we kind of final thoughts on our communication, make sure you're not going to Abilene. If I were to ask you right now, hey, are you guys about 90% finished with that business model? Y'all have it written out? I might get that kind of consensus going to Abilene. So make sure that you know where your team is and always understand who those stakeholders are, because they may have been left out in the communication that you need. Your boss, other managers, other people, if they can help or hurt your project, they should be in some sort of a communication loop with you so they understand what your plans are.